morning, and welcome to another message from the Blerd Church of Anime. I am your preacher, your pastor, your messenger, your spiritual advisor, whatever you want to call me. I am Black Star. And I gotta be really honest with y'all. I feel like I say this every other week, but I struggle with what to talk about this week. Not because I didn't have an idea. In fact, I started writing a whole thing around promising last week to possibly do some horror anime. And this whole thing I started writing about Crash House and Castlevania, and then I realized that I had not finished the whole series, and I wanted to make sure that my final premise was right. So I started trying to finish the series. Did not get done in time, and then I was like, well, I'm not gonna get this message without knowing what I'm talking about because I know there'll be Castlevania fans that be like, an episode da 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 and this da da da, and y'all can actually meet to death, which I encourage y'all to do because I would do it to anyone else. So I'm not saying the nerds can't come at me, but to make sure that I'm not wrong, I was like, oh, I might need to wait another week until I can finish. But I spent so much time talking and thinking about that and writing for that. I was like, well, what am I going to do this week? And I still want to stick to a horror anime theme. And I started thinking, okay, horror anime. What horror anime have I seen that I think I can talk about? And to be honest, a lot of it is body horror, are just very creative ways to kill off Japanese high school students with, I don't know, supernatural means, which I do not find a deeper meaning in right now, at least where I am in my life. And there was some new horror anime I wasn't quite sure I was ready to watch because I am a chicken. I do not want to watch things alone at night, especially when it gets dark. Um, and then you gotta follow my train of thought. I went through a whole thing of oh, what's horror really about? And I was like, oh, we could talk about Ito stuff and the spirals, but I feel like I want more time on that because it is so intricate in psychological horror, and I definitely can't get that stuff wrong. The Ito fangirls and fanboys, I have a friend of mine who is really into their stuff. Yep, not gonna not be half knowledgeable in that. So maybe next year I will really take the year to go through everything because I don't want to just watch the shorts and the animes. I actually want to get through some of the mangas as well because I know they have much deeper themes behind it. So okay, psychological horror, body horror, killing, ghosts, vampires is where the Castlevania stuff came through. And it ultimately comes out to death. Death is a big piece of horror. And the part of spooky season too, we have the undead, we have skeletons, we have ghosts, we have vampires, all of that as part of it. So I started thinking about death, and start thinking how funny it is that death would be the scary thing, considering we have the whole isekai genre where we know death is not the end. A truck come get you, that it could be a beginning for better things. And I started thinking, well, what happens in death or what makes death a motivator? And then I'm like, oh, death games, death game genre, which is not, I don't think explicitly horror anime, but is a genre of anime and manga that I actually really, really like when there is good death game anime, like Darwin's Game or Future Diary. I really like the death game theory. And so I started really, really digging deeper into that and rethinking through it. Started rewatching a little bit of Future Diary because it's been a while since I watched Future Diary. And I was like, oh, I think I have a topic. So all of that to say, I think we're going to talk about death and death games. And I am going to throw in one more anime slash manga in here that is not explicitly a death game. Tomodachi Game is another one I'm putting there because it's on this cusp. And I think where I want to get to in this message, Tomodachi Game has a really unique spin and take on it. So, yes, I'm trying to keep it down to three good ones. I'm gonna do Future Diary, Darwin's Game, and Tomodachi Game. There, I said it. This is a really long intro. Let's talk about death and death games, which we know death games has been a pretty popular genre, especially in Japan, and has spilled over to other things since the 1999 novel Battle Royale, which got turned into a movie in 2000, was one of the top grossing movies in Japan for a while. And if I'd be shocked if you've never heard of Battle Royale or don't know the meaning of it. I mean, in just general layman's terms, before the movie and the anime, I mean the novel, battle royales you see a lot in just sports. You have like in the Roman time, just a bunch of like people come together to all kill each other for sport, for spectator. WWE and wrestling has had tons of battle royales, so some people know that terminology from wrestling. Us nerds may know it from the Japanese novel and movies and manga, because manga was written after the novel of Battle Royale, which was, also a precursor to things like Hunger Games. They're literally games about people, typically teens, but just general people, killing each other for whatever goal, prize, you. Really, really popular Battle Royale series. I'm sure everybody's been talking about. Thank you, Netflix. Has been Squid Games. Squid Games. It is Squid Game. I don't know why I forgot that. My brain just had a major fart right there. And Squid Game, I think, is has a very common trope to it around like the battle royale factor. Like, there's a lot of reasons why you would have a battle royale, why you would have a death game happening. And something we're seeing a lot of is that it is typically for money. That like you are willing to kill or do extreme things for money, and we see that again in Tomodachi game as well. But just in general, battle royale though, when it starts off, it's not about money. These kids in this junior high classroom are not killing each other to win this prize. They're killing each other for survival because that's what the fascist Japanese government has decided to do as a way to make sure the rest of the country doesn't try to band together against the country and also realize that the government has full control over their lives. Again, definitely the premise of Hunger Games and why they established the Hunger Games too. So Battle Royale, I think, putting these kids against each other, saying you have to kill each other, and it's all, state sanctioned violence is, amazing. It's really good, deeper political themes. And then you see, again, with good uh, death game series, um, that a lot of these things, a lot of this political discourse and social commentary continue. I think about in Future Diary, while they're trying to stop the apocalypse, like there's 11 or 12 diary holders who are all battling for the powers of God, Deus Machina, and they're dying and they need to give their powers to somebody else, and so this is a competition to eliminate the other diary holders to say like, well, if this person will get my powers and God, I can create as they want. And the various people are in the game for various reasons. A lot of them didn't mean to get into the games. Even the main character Yuki was like, I just thought this was this was just like an imaginary friend. Didn't realize you were a real god and you want me to play this game. And they are participating so they don't die. Like survival is a big piece of it until they eventually get a reason for why they want to win. And then you see this a lot more, especially in Darwin game, where people join these games when they have an option to join them, like in Squid Games, for money. In Darwin game, it's an app, and people who see the app and decide to join the game, if they're not tricked into joining the game, as some characters are, it's because it's an easy way to get money. And, people are like, oh, well, this feels like there's no downside until you realize, oh, I gotta kill people or I can be killed in order to keep this money. And then Tomodachi game, it is literally, while again, it's not a death game explicitly, it is this conversation about value of friendship versus the value of money and how that can ruin lives as well, which I think, again, we're gonna get more into Tomodachi game in a minute, but I just gotta highlight that. And what I'm seeing through all of this, whether it's Battle Royale, Tomodachi game, Darwin's game, or Future Diaries, is this theme of desperation. People are willing to engage and cause harm and survive or not survive because they're in desperate situations. So me turning a little bit political, because there's no way you can talk about death games and not talk about politics, because that is the basics behind a death game and a battle royale-esque story, is that like I don't think you can deal with 90% of crime, especially here in America or even around the world, until you deal with the issue of poverty. Because I think poverty overall is what people is what puts people into desperate situations where they're willing to do almost anything and sometimes nearly anything in order to survive. Like that is full stop a big thing. I people are like, oh, there's morals and your religion, and yes, all of that is great until someone is desperate enough and is trying to survive that they'll do what it takes, which is stab people in the back, kill somebody, do what they do, stealing, like all types of like horrible things, and again just crime in order to survive, to be able to make ends meet. And some of the times, not just for themselves, but for their family too. I think there is a theme in the characters of a lot of these stories of people who are not doing it for themselves, and they've kind of been held up as some of the better characters and heroes throughout the story. Do they win? I mean, no, most cases they don't. So if you find that character in the story, know that they're not gonna make it to the end. But it is important to have the person who doesn't just kill or do the thing for themselves, they're doing it for other people. And I say only 90% because I think there is a contingent of people who are just antisocial or have sociopathic tendencies and disorders, who do not feel empathy for other people and do things just because they want to. They have these narcissistic tendencies where they don't feel empathy towards other people, and so they just take, and there's nothing you can do, whether they are impoverished or they have everything they need or more, they're going to continue to take. I think there is a segment of the population that would do that. And then I also think there's just crimes of passion where people who are hurt other folk. But I think a lot of the major crimes we could get rid of if we dealt with poverty and making sure people did not have lack and we're not put into the most desperate situations. And I think we see that a lot in Squid Games as a whole series, but even the fact that people like Mr. Beast are creating Beast games and folk are jumping into the wagon. Of course, they're not going to kill each other or whatever as they have in Squid Game, but people are willing to do so much to debase themselves, others, their family. I mean, just the rise of reality television and streaming and content creation, people will put their most shameful things out front for other folk to judge and see and comment because it makes them money and they're desperate, or they want the attention because they're desperate. So I think there's a lot to say about these death games really preying on desperation. We're going to start off with Future Diary because it's the oldest one. And one thing I think about in the desperation of Future Diary and the obsession, I think is desperation and obsession, is that the various characters within Future Diary who are battling one to make sure they're not taken out because again in a death game there can only be one, and even if you do not want to play, if you want to survive, you want to live, whether that's to be there for your family, protect your children, do whatever, you know you are at some point, and they do this really early in the series, especially with Yuki did never want to play this game. He didn't think it was a real thing until someone's trying to kill him. And then it's like, oh shoot. And he tries really, really hard in the first half of the series to not kill other people. He will go after the diaries because if you disable the diaries, that person ceases to exist, which feels better than, someone else. But in the end, it's the same thing. But there's this desperation of like, I don't want to be a part of this, but now that I'm in it, I have to do whatever I want to survive. And because there's so many bad people, folk who are like terrorists, there's a whole like bomber and there is a serial killer who's playing the game. Like you gotta spice it up. They can't all just be good people or the game would never get done. Folk who are using it for their own nefarious means, you're like, well, if I'm a good person, I should get these powers rather than this other person or this bad person, because who knows what they'll do with it. Like it is dangerous to leave the power to folk who willingly want to kill people for whatever reason. And then there's also, I can't, talk about Future Diary and Yuki without talking about the main the main character, which is Yuno is somebody who, in a series of desperations because of her backstory, because of her family life, um, meets Yuki and like puts so much of her energy and so much of herself into wanting to be with this guy because he was kind to her once. Um, is kind of like the archetype of the yandere. And I'm always like, justice for yanderes. I tend to let the yandere characters, and I feel the ways that they never win. Yanderes do not win in a harem anime. Just already know that. Which I think I can get in a whole nother rant about why that is, and especially in America, the idea of like you don't want the girl who's willing to die for you and do everything for you, but whatever. I'm not a yandere, don't worry. I keep saying I am nobody's punching bag. I do not do things for other people like that. But, she is someone who is in this game willing to die for Yuki. She puts herself in harm's way constantly and always I'm like if there's nobody else you can trust in this game, you can trust me because ultimately I want you to win it. And that is a lot of lies, a lot of harm comes to other people because of Yuno's own obsession and what she's trying to do and what she's trying to create, and also what she's trying to avenge and the guilt that she feels towards other things. I don't want to spoil because it's a major part of her backstory uh, about, why does what she does and like how the game eventually shapes up. But there is a big piece of her desperation being, what messes up the other diary holders. And also there's this a whole like mystery around who she is and what she's doing and why Mirmir is Miru, if you want to call him that way too, if you read the manga, kind of supports in some of the things that she does in this game, and we know they're supposed to be an objective observer. I think Future Diary, and again, that fear of death and the fear of all these people using other people to cause harm. I mean, Japan must look like a war zone, the amounts of explosions and bombs and all the things that happen in this anime alone from the future diary holders and their apprentices, so that becomes a thing to ultimately be, an ending where you're really nobody kind of wins because exactly these games kind of work when you have only one good person that you're rooting for. But when you see that there's a lot of people who, again, are desperate, who've lived life on the edges, who want to protect their people, whether it's their family, their kid, who's all this kind of stuff, and they make deals with devils, unfortunately, to kind of protect what is most important to them at the peril of other people in and outside of the game too, I will say. Is it a horror anime? It's definitely psychological horror and some kind of creepy pieces of, the limits that people are willing to push to one, survive, which is the basis of most of these battle royale and death games, and also to achieve a goal. I think Future Diary is a interesting watch. It's a very interesting. It's a good anime overall. I remember watching it, and a couple people I was watching it with, they were like, "This is too wild," and they did not like and I had so much pity for her. Um, like she's crazy. But then the more we get into it, like there's something here, like there's something we're not touching on. Like there's a reason she's this crazy, and we get to it. I'm like, yep, yep, makes sense to me. It's so important to like give that conversation. And also I think you have to be kind of crazy to survive any type of death game. Like no one here and any of the stuff I mentioned can be considered like normal people. You can't be normal and survive a death game. So that's the first thing. If you find yourself in a death game, please don't be the normal person. You may act like you're normal. You may act like you have um the normal common sense and like you have these morals and you're upstanding Japanese or American or whatever citizen. But at the end of the day, if you're going to survive, you need to be crazy as all get out. It's the only way you get through it. But Future Diary again gets us into Darwin's game, which is, different. There is a game master creates this app, and the main character, Pseudo, Kaname, I think is his first name, gets an online invite to play the game from a friend, 17-year-old. And he's kind of like Yuki, where he joins the game inadvertently. Does not mean to go into a death match, doesn't understand all the rules. All he knows is that his friend sent him an invite, and his friend sent the invite in a moment of desperation because they're about to be killed. And they needed someone to like sign up and join in order for him to get like a special items and things that would like help him not to be killed. So then Kaname jumps into this game, and what he's really searching for isn't to win this game, isn't to make money, although that was the reason his friend joins the game and his other friends. I think it's like three of them were really obsessed with buying motorcycles. And two of them was like, a best way to get the money to do that is to join this game and do this stuff. While the guy Kaname out of it kind of was like, I'm making the money the old fashioned way, which is I'm being very poor. I'm saving all my money. I'm trying to buy parts together to like build it myself. But he gets put into this he gets trapped into this game, and his main goal is to find his missing friend, the one who sends him the invitation. And murder ensues, lots of death and dismemberment. Um, and Kaname is forced to, in the end, end up doing like this multiverse like battle. It is not in the anime. I really enjoyed the first season of the anime, so I went and got the manga. I've been following it for years. It's finally finished, I believe. It's crazy. But I think if you're just looking at the first season of the anime, which I think gives you more the death game there, it's this idea of someone unwillingly joined this game. He's doing the mystery, the detective work of trying to find out his friend, figure out what happened to his friend, why his friend has disappeared, trying to find the mystery behind this game, and then decides to get his goal to clear the game and like seek out and kill the game master because this is a messed up game. Once he understands the basis of what he signed up for and what his friends have been doing, he is pissed. And it's like, nah, I'm about to clear this game and find the game master, and we gonna have words, and then it's gonna end with one of us still being here. And who can't respect a bad A? Like, I'm here for it. I think what I love about Darwin's game and the simplicity of it before I got into the manga and we get off into crazy other world stuff, um, and multiverse stuff is it's a playground for a lot of different people, and it's again about a little bit about building community, and you see some of the worst personalities being able to thrive in this world because it allows them to do the things that is typically frowned upon, like the moral um in place of being able to find power and money. And for a lot of them, it isn't just the money, it is the power and being able to make people be terrified. You get a lot of gang warfare happening in Darwin's game. Because you'll get people who are like really powerful because of like their innate nature. Then you get people who get a sigil, which is like the ability that the game gives you based on like your own personality. And it can be there's some really great sigils, and there's some like this don't help at all. You get to meet people who are like my sigil sucks, and so then they are um relegated to joining clans and starting groups in order to like maintain and stay alive. This again, this desperation, this survival, and trying to be with these other groups. I like that Kaname starts off as like a sigil that seems kind of dumb, and he's like, "This, I'm gonna get killed here." But being very smart and learn how to use it and builds a clan of people who are both powerful in their own right, but also who need support, especially when they're all trapped in some of these games. That loners, again, a lot of times loners cannot survive this type of game. And while I like the game setups a little bit different from like a battle royale, different from a Future's Diary where there can only be one, which is a true battle royale, in order to clear this game, I think there's a lot of like we need to work together and support each other. I mean, yes, there are things where like clans have to defeat other clans. There are special games that happen within the app itself where there's can only be one winner, and you get like a lot of riches and things. So you gotta pick who the main person's going to be. But I don't think it distracts from that sometimes in the most desperate of situations the way you overcome is creating community and building with other people. And I think ultimately that's what I liked about Darwin's game. It makes it feel less scary as a death game than some of the other ones. Well, like yes, in a lot of death games you'll see even things like Alice in Borderland. Like yes, all the characters have to kill each other, blah blah blah, but there's always this idea of this teaming up of like we have to be able to like create even in Hunger Games, like because the districts you see what's her face and PETA like having to be a pair or create alliances, even though there can only be one, Highlander rules. But yeah, I think in Darwin's game, you creating groups, you creating factions and clans is rewarded in a better way than what you see in the Squid Game, Assassination Classroom, all of those kind of things. Uh, what was the one about Dead Men Wonderland? Oh, that was another one. I have to rewatch that. I was thinking about doing that one too, and I realized I have to finish the manga because there's so much more to it than just what we saw in that season of the anime. So death is like in Darwin's game is erasure, um, which I think is also a little bit scarier than just a typical like, oh, there's your dead body. Oh, we're so sad. Like, no, like your body pixelates and is like gone. Like there's an imprint of where your body was, and you're no longer like you are a missing person forever. No one can confirm that you lived and or that you die. Like it's very like scary. And I think you kind of feel that in Kaname and his like searching for his friend and finding out what happens. That like only people who are involved in this small little world would ever know what happened to you, and that is truly sad, especially for families who don't know what happened to their loved ones who got put up into this app. And I think that's another part of horror is like just not knowing. I think you see this in Darwin's game, and you'll see this again when I get into Tamagotchi game as well. This idea of those that are left behind trying to figure out what happened. It's another version of like being spirited away, where like you don't know if your person is dead or alive, ran away, kidnapped, what have you, if this was their decision, if they got put in something else. I think it's always really sad when you get like that detective figure or that person who was a loved one of someone who's part of the death game seeking out and trying to find out what happened, and then they get pulled into themselves, and I think it just continues that cycle. And I think that is a really creepy spooky part of a lot of the death game genre that we see too. Darwin's game gives you, I think, a little bit more framework to like build community and clans. Tomodachi game is all about community and breaking that up into pieces. I seriously love the first series of Tomodachi game that I decided to like jump head first into the manga and read the whole thing. Like I said before, Tomodachi game is not a battle or a death game per se. Basically, it's like what is more important, friends or money. And so, like the basic premise of Tomodachi game, if you've never seen it, never heard of it, is that like the game itself is you get groups of friends. I think it's like either 5 or 6 friends. Like you can't just be two besties. You need a whole like group of people. I'm pretty sure it's like 5 people. Nope, one, two, three. Yeah, it's 5 people. So 5 people are pulled into this game, and the game is that you 5 people as a unit are now responsible for one of the 5 people, one of the friends' debt. And so in order to help that person with their debt, like it's all split among the 5 of you. So if the person had like $100,000 worth of debt, split 5 ways, that's like $20,000 worth of debt per person. I had to do my math real quick on my fingers. So you do these games, and these games can like reduce the debt or add to the debt or even put the debt all on another person. So it's like using this money as a way to say, like, will you be willing to like share the burdens of your friends? And part of you getting in the game is like you're not supposed to know which of the friends dragged you in there. And there's also like a little bit of promise of wealth there that like, hey, we'll like subtract the debt from all of you, but we'll take more debt away from you, or we'll give you money for this kind of thing, in hopes of breaking up the friendship. And as a psychological thriller, it's really interesting because like the main character, Yuchi, is like a despicable guy, but you don't know that starting off because he's this kid who's like was taught that the value of friendship was like super important, that you should always choose your friends over money. And then you get to his backstory and it was like, oh, that was not what he was first taught. That came as a result of some trauma. And so getting put into this game, he's the one that's keeping his wits about it and trying to keep their friendship together when the five of his friends, all mostly middle class or wealthier, when he's the poor one. I think it's him. And then there's this one girl who she's a bit poor. She has some interesting backstory too, as well, living with a single mom. So you can imagine that like she is not very well to do. She's very shy, used to be bullied a lot. Then you have two other friend group, two who are like childhood friends who both their parents are professionals. Like one's a detective, another one's is like a lawyer. So like they're pretty well off, or they're okay. And then you have one, the last friend member who is rich, like his parents, his father's a politician, they have money. So like they have different levels of money, and you kind of see like through these games that are testing their friendships, and like in simple things, like the psychological piece of it is, do you trust your friends? Do you think they're trying to screw you over? Are they trying to saddle all this debt onto somebody else or onto you? And should you just be like, F them and do it yourself? And what I really, really like about Tomodachi Game is that in the midst of the betrayals, the common conversation of if friendship is more important than money, or how money brings up friendship, or even just the not knowing, like not knowing who got you, who put you all into this to do this game without your permission. So that's one way of the friendship breaking down. Two, somebody having this extreme amount of debt that you knew nothing about, that you are now going to be responsible for your friends. And then three, these games are like geared towards putting stress on the friendship. What is super important, I think is interesting, is to watch the remending of friendships through this. So like first few episodes, it is about the breakdown. Like who is doing this? They're like, you're not allowed to talk about how much money that you've made or the debt that was removed from your own thing. Like you're doing a lot of stuff off faith. And you're all friends. They're like, yeah, yeah, we trust each other. We trust each other. But do you trust each other? Do you really? Are you sitting here thinking, oh, I think so and so got us here, or I think this is a debt from so and so? And then there's this game where you have to tell secrets of each other, to like move ahead, kind of like in this Candyland esque kind of like piece by piece board game. Um, and it's crazy. You get what I'm saying if you've seen this, the first season. If you haven't read the manga, like it's crazy to see like some of the intentionality behind how the group got put into the game, and like who is the bad guy spinning the wheels at the beginning. And then there is a reversal where that person is able to be kind of redeemed. And if you go into the manga, so redemption is a factor along all of this. Like all of them are tainted in some way, even being 17-year-old students in their second year of senior high. But all of them have done each other wrong in a different way. And this terrible game that is meant to exploit them and to break up their friendship still allows for there to be pieces of redemption and to reforge stronger friendships. And I think that is the crux of the thing I want to get to about death games and survival games and battle royale, is that like sometimes in your most desperate situations, sometimes in the most horrific piece where it's like dog eat dog, man versus man. Like I have to survive, and I can only survive if you don't survive, which it feels like a lot sometimes, like not to the extreme of being put into like a Darwin's game app, or going to a remote island having to kill everybody in your class. But in this like kill or be killed situation, that there there is something to be said about still having empathy and trusting people. And yes, there's gonna be times, and we see it throughout all of these series, where someone trusted somebody else and they got shanked in the back. Like it happens. You trust the wrong person. But the people who eventually win, the people who come out of this with their soul intact, are the people who who fight back against the game's true purpose, which again, from Battle Royale, which is about hopelessness and survival and tribalism and, this individualism that I have to do it on my own, is this saying that the people who survive are the folk who trust and work with other people. And I can't stress it enough that, like, even though the universe seems like it's trying to make us all, like, huddle and protect our own to survive, it is not going to work. Because then, when you are trying to survive on your own, when you have to watch your own back, when you are living with your head on the swivel and then trying to keep your things together, you do not see the thing that's coming for you at the end, and then there's nobody to carry on the future. It is through us organizing and coming together and pushing back against the structures of the game, because again, all these death games are structures. All these death games that they give us, whether it's the battle royale and it's a fascist Japan, whether it's Future Diary and it's a god just like trying to figure out who his successor is going to be and give them the power to reshape it, whether it's Darwin's game and the game master trying to prepare for multi-universal war or whatever. At the end of the day, and Future and Tomodachi game, which is, someone's big grudge, is about breaking against the system and doing things in a way that says, like, I do not lose the plot, I do not lose my humanity, I do not lose the reason we're doing it. And again, in all your other shows, from Hunger Games, although let's be very honest, Katniss fell into this thing hook, line, and sinker. It was Peeta that was like, we could do things different, and she's like, I'm pissed off, fine. It is the same in Squid Games. It is the same, like, the people, the true heroes, the ones who are here to break the system, are the ones who don't follow along with the rules of the system. So I think my charge to you is, like, even in the psychological thrillers and the spookiness and the horror of being trapped in a survivalistic plot, in a survivalistic game, which I think some of us really feel, you become the hero when you do not play by their rules, when you find people who are trustworthy, when you band together and you turn the world on its end. And I'm going to spoil Battle Royale because I feel like you should have seen it already. It's been out for 24 plus years. But like, the most important thing about Battle Royale is that main character, the guy who eventually wins the Battle Royale, is one, someone who did do this before. Like, the main character, what is his name, like, he's a year older than everybody else and was the winner and realized, like, this is stupid, and it tries to find the right school beforehand and changes so that way they keep in the system and takes that information. Not Shuya, it was Kawada. Shuya is the main character, but it's Kawada. Kawada is the one who was the former winner and feigns killing Shuya and Noriko and say, like, hey, let's band together, and pretends and dishonors and, like, disables the collar that is tracking them, and they're able to, like, get them away and be like, go and flee and go to a democratic America, haha, and be refugees from the Japanese government, and they win. They win the game because not just one person is declared the winner. There's more people who got to get out of that situation and then use what they know to help and better. And that's why they have sequels later on, because um, there's other battle royale. But again, they beat the game again, kind of like with Katniss and Peeta, and like, there'll be no winner then. I want to eat the berry, by, like, standing on his head and pushing back against the series and pushing back against the people who want you to do a certain thing. So I've been talking for a really long time. I didn't think this would be as long, considering that I was like, I have nothing to talk about. But again, I think thinking through death games and the spooky season, thinking about psychological thrillers and how people try to manipulate you, the best I can say is push back. And the best way to push back is to not go it alone, is to go it with other people. You will not survive alone. Here, take this, and take this as my hand. Take the hands of people who are willing to work with you and willing to rise against these systems that want our death and destruction, or say that only one person can survive or only one person crown the winner, because that's not a system I think we should aspire to be a part of or to let win. So, heavy thoughts on a Sunday morning. I do hope And I forgot to say this at the beginning, but like, I hope your last week was great. I hope you had a fantastic week. And that if you didn't, then forget last week. We're wishing for an even better week this week as we go through the fall, spooky season. Do your witchy things. If you need to talk to an Etsy witch to kind of like, get your good luck game up, or to get something together to stop whatever is happening that's keeping you from having good weeks, do what you need to do. There, a lot of them have sales for Halloween. Just saying, I will always support an Etsy witch. Again, I hope that you have a great week coming up, and I will see you next time. All right. The Blerd Church of Anime podcast is produced by Blackstar, aka Lauren Tillman, written by Lauren Tillman, and hosted by Lauren Tillman. Music created by EL47.